You know, the Uber investor Bill Miller, Patrice, as I said at the outset, isn't worried by this. He thinks, to both of these people's point here, that you get up to 3%, even north of that on a 10-year note, which is still historically low, I think, Mary. You'd agree? You're going to see the markets continue to race up. He said another 30%, which would be, what, it would take us to 33,000 on the Dow. What do you think of that?
I mean, I think that's great if you have a 401k like myself and many others. But I think it is troublesome and worrisome if we're thinking about, you know, what this means for our trade deficits, what it means for our international trading in general, but particularly with China, if that's going to have an impact on interest rates and just how our markets are working. You know, I do join with my colleagues in thinking that, you know, overheated rhetoric with China and going back and forth, which is what we've seen coming off the campaign trail, and turning America into a nationalist, almost isolationist perspective is really not helpful. So we'll see what happens when President Trump goes to Davos.
I see this as a sign that the Fed is normalizing. And, you know, nothing else is free in the world. Why should credit be free? And they tried to make credit essentially free.
But we got used to that.
Yeah, that's true. But, I mean, I think it also had costs as well as benefits. They thought that it was going to spur the economy. We did not have a strong economy during the Obama years. And I think getting back to a normal yield curve will actually be a positive for the economy.
But the Fed isn't doing this part.
Quantitative easing affected the
Oh, no, I agree. But the Fed isn't doing this part. I mean, we have a spike in yields today because of the worry with China. And I agree with you 100% on normalization, and credit should not be for free. And the credit bubble that Obama created through the Fed, when Obama gave him the cover to do all that, it was part of a kind of a joint resolution between Bernanke and Obama, that created a bubble in the stock market. But here's where I worry. If you have the Fed normalizing, if you have China boycotting or selling, if you're an average investor and you can get a 4% yield on a 10-year, would you risk your money in stocks?
What is the level? What would be the level to do that?
Well, no, you would not, or do so depending on how fast the economy is growing. What are the other alternative opportunities in the market?
At a 20 or 30% clip, I'll roll the dice on the market.
Exactly. Right. So you can't really say that 4% is too high or too low. It depends on what the alternatives are. But I do think that the market is in some way reading the tea leaves about where the Fed is going with quantitative easing and with rates.
You know, guys, if you were to predict it, I'm stealing off a great editorial in your fine journal here, that Donald Trump would be going to Davos and Steve Bannon would be going to the curb. I think that the premise of the story was you'd be called a liar. You'd have to have been called a liar. But that, you know, Patrice, that's what's happened. It is weird, isn't it?
It's interesting. I mean, I don't think that we can expect, President Trump to abandon the America First agenda. I think he's actually going to go there to trumpet it, and he's going to go there at a time when we're seeing, astronomical rise in our stock market. We're seeing a strong economic growth and lowest levels of unemployment. So he has something to tout on the international stage, and maybe have a little bit of leverage, maybe a little bit of a lap of, this is what happens when you have good economic policies.
Why does he want to even go? I mean, who's the last president to go? Bill Clinton?
Well, Bill Clinton.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's... I'm sorry, go ahead, Patrice.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, we've seen Obama even release his State of the Union right before Davos, where he talked about increasing taxes on the wealthy. And that didn't go over well with these bigwigs and, CEOs that attend this meeting. So I think it's a nice contrast to what we've seen over the past 8 years.
Davos is a very progressive. I mean, there are a lot of CEOs. I don't go anymore. I purposely took it out of my contract.
I think you should go this year.
To go to Milken because it's warmer in L.A.
I think you should go this year. The fondue is terrific.
They will throw me out. Listen, I had some good times in Davos,
sure.
but it's much more of a progressive sort of.
So why is Trump going?
I think he's doing a victory lap.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you, and yes. I agree with you about Davos too. It's really on the cutting edge of conventional wisdom. I mean, there's really nothing interesting.
I like that cutting edge of conventional wisdom
that happens there. But the thing about Bannon, which is interesting to me, is I think looking back, in retrospect, you could have predicted this in a sense because Trump wants to succeed. And he cannot succeed only with the base that, you know, goes to the big stadium and roars him on in the red seats. He's got to bring more people along. And I agree with Patrice. Now is the moment to do it because he has these wind under his belt.
It was the emergence of Bannon, and supposedly he was the brains behind that very dark inaugural address, that it was going to be this dark, Darth Vader type of administration.
I like Steve a lot, but he's an apocalyptic drama queen. Okay, and I think him not being there is helpful in this sense. Not everything rises to the occasion of a crisis. You soften Trump's rhetoric, and if he softens a little bit, he'll be more appealing. Because I know the guy. I know Trump personally. You do too. One-on-one, he's like a great guy. It's like when he got off on tangents.
This book that characterizes him as sort of Mr. Magoo.
Well, I mean, this guy. This is the real question about this book. A little bit of a tangential here. Why Steve brought this guy, of all people, in the White House, gave him free reign is...
What do you think he did? Because he had like a Disney fast pass, access to the West Wing, and was constantly seen.
It's just insane.
Well, I mean, maybe he thought that, there was actually going to be a good story that came out of it. But
that never happens.
What? This guy?
That never happens.
The problem, I think one of the problems here is that Trump has seen what happened in Alabama. And he learned his lesson about Bannonism, I think, from Alabama.
Yeah,
and he's just decided he's got to get rid of this weight around
his... Patrice, now we have Joe Arpaio running for that Arizona seat. So what does the president do?
We'll see. I mean, I think he has learned lessons of the past, and he may not be so much of a Arpaio supporter.
It's not just him. It's what's Kelly Ward, and there's a few others lurking around.
I will just say about Davos. I mean, we saw Nikki Haley have her UN moment. This could be his moment on the international stage. So the headline will be Trump in Davos, and I think it will be very interesting to say the least, but reinforce that America First agenda that has lifted the U.S. economy in a way that we haven't seen.
And he'll steal. Let me just make this point.
Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. No, he will steal the show there.
Yeah.
Because do you go to Davos much?
No.
I go. I used to go. It is so boring. It is just one progressive stream of BS after another.
Well, aren't we sending people there?
I'm telling you, it is horrible.
Well, wait a minute. We might be doing coverage from there.
I'm just telling you the truth. I used to say this when I was there.
Let's go back to Trump,
and they used to complain about me.
When he ran for president, we had the economy growing at less than 2% a year. We had a lot of unhappy people. Now, the economy is growing more, and I think a lot of that sort of bitterness against trade, against immigrants, against others is sort of dissipating because people feel hope and opportunity and so forth. And this is the time to lose Bannon.
The dark hasn't helped his poll numbers,
Yeah, I'm worried about his poll numbers only because I think...
I agree with you. That's fleeting. That could change.
It could change, hopefully. Hopefully it's not like he hasn't created the impression through his tweets that he's such a jerk. And
the way you ask questions in a poll can give you the answers you want.
Yeah.
So if it's about him as a person,
is he Lucifer
maybe
or the
people
devil?
not like him.
Right.
But if it's about how people are better off, I think you're going to get different answers.
I still want to know why Bannon let him in the office. This is just so insane that... who told him? Like, hey, Michael, there's
you're talking about Michael Wolff.
Yeah, there's you and there's Michael Wolff. Oh, let's bring Michael Wolff. We'll get a better deal out of it.
All right. We're waiting for a spray from this cabinet meeting going on with the president. I want to thank you guys.